Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Whelan, the host of the WB Download, and I want to invite you and welcome you to our podcast. My brother and I own and operate Whelan Builders. It's a custom home building company here in Southwest Ohio. The WB Download mostly focuses on interviewing folks associated with custom building. We stray now and then to interview people who I think are interesting and to break up the monotony of the same old podcast. I also like to highlight things that are going on in my everyday life along with our businesses. I started this podcast to help people understand the custom builder world, but to also give people a chance to hear what others have to say and highlight their expertise and experiences in life. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month with a new topic and or guest each time. I hope you join us here on the WB Download and enjoy listening and hearing stories of people in and out of the custom builder world. Welcome to the WB Download. Well, hello again, everybody. Once again, this is Jeff Whelan here on the WB Download. Today is June 10th, 2025, and today is my dad, Jack Whelan's birthday. Happy birthday to my dad. I love you, bud. I hope you're doing good today. And you're 81 today. Wow, man. Last year we threw a killer party for him for his 80th, and he's still kicking along, doing a lot of things. My dad's a young 81. He's I see people, I go to church with a guy who's 70 and he acts like he's 1,000. And I talk to other people. I see other people that looked older their whole life. And I look at my dad and he's still running around doing things and getting along really, really good. So, hey, anyway, if you see him, wish him a happy birthday. I hope everybody enjoyed our podcast the last time with Adam Helke from Iowa. Adam is just such a good dude, and I really enjoyed the conversation. And once again, I wish that we would have had the microphone on earlier and kept it on later so we could have caught up with that conversation. But Adam is such a great guy. And the reason why I wanted to talk to him was he was starting over, coming out of a partnership and starting his new business and doing a lot of good things, but touching base on things that I've kind of forgot about, what you have to go through when you're starting out in the business, but also start touching base on things that you have to do every day in business, whether you're just starting or you've been existing. So that was pretty cool. So today our guest is none other than John Lohr from Gordian Construction. John is my cousin, and he has been in the commercial building business since he was in college. And he now, of course, he's basically a custom industrial builder, and builds great big commercial buildings. And I've really enjoyed this conversation with him. Mike, my brother Mike, has joined us today for this interview, and we were all, I guess, I knew it, and I tell him this in the interview, but we were all really close when we were younger, and we spent a lot of time together. And it's kind of cool to reminisce. When we got done with this interview, we were sitting around. We were drinking beer during the interview, of course, and we were drinking beer. Had a couple beers afterwards, and we were sitting around. And he said, "What good would this interview do your business to promote?" Everybody always asks me, "Do you think the WB Download gets you more business?" And he was asking me, "Hey, what good does an interview with John Lohr do for Whelan Builders?" And I'm like, I do this on the WB Download. I do the podcast because I'm intrigued to learn more about other people. I think that everybody has a story. Johnny's got an awesome story. That we get into a lot of his personal life because I'm amazed by, he's a super intelligent, just a great human being, all the way around, and has got a great mind on his head, a great head on his shoulders is what I'm trying to say. And he does great business. I mean, he's always been a guy that I've looked up to. So I want to look at the obstacles he had in his life, the high points he had in his life, and what got him here, and then how he continues to move that on. If it doesn't do any good business for Whelan Builders, I don't really care. But I think that what I'm trying to do is highlight his life and his story. And the other thing he can do is use that in his business. But he can also, his kids will have this. It's a legacy. When I interviewed my dad for the first time on the WB Download, there was people come up saying, "You'll have this forever. This is his story." And now you've got it recorded. You know how many people pass away and they're like, "Man, and their grandkids or great grandkids never knew anything about them." And now you have this interview to do that. Not every single one of our interviews is going to highlight something for Wheel and Builders. I do this because I had a friend of mine named Richard Hoffman, who was a realtor, developer, builder. But how I knew him was he was a racer, and we were in a club, are in a club called the Buckeye Auto Race Fan Club, and this is a group of guys that sits around and talks about racing. They tell stories, and these are real racers that tell real stories. They're not the typical, big fish stories. And then when Richard passed away, I was so disappointed and upset that I didn't get to talk to him anymore and listen to his stories, that I started listening to the Dale Jr. download. And Dale Jr. does, he interviews old racers, current racers, everybody involved in the sport. He's interviewed guys that aren't involved in the sport and different people. And every time I'm listening to this, it's really cool. And then you listen to Howard Stern. Now, I could care less about all the crap all the other stuff that's foul and horrible that Howard Stern does. His interviews are unbelievable, and you can listen to these interviews and you learn more about people. And you learn more like things that songwriters and just different people that come on there, and you learn so many cool things. I just love this aspect of it. That's why I do it. If I'm hoping that this promotes Wheel and Builders, I'm hoping that on YouTube and in the Google Drive or on Google, not in our Google Drive, but on Google, that it will promote and attract people to Wheel and Builders. I also hope that all the things that we talk about construction, it's helping people make better decisions. And whether that be a builder or a customer, it's helping you make a better decision on what you're doing out there. And if other builders are doing things more correctly or the way they should, then that helps me, because if I got to bid against somebody who sucks, which is a lot of the time, then it's not an even bid. And the customer is the one who gets screwed on that whole thing, because they think they made a conscious decision and really all they did was get ripped off. I hope this stuff all helps people. But really, I'm just super excited to share people's stories with them. Johnny's no exception. I love his story, and I love this dude, and I'm so proud to see where he's at today. And that's why I really wanted to get him on the podcast. And so today we are going to hear his story. So check him out at Gordian. And also, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. So today we have, just thinking about the things I've had going on in the last couple of weeks. I think I said this the last time, but we've been going to a lot of graduation parties, which is great because we get to catch up with people. We've been going to a lot of 50th birthday parties because I turned 50 last year, and we get to catch up with people, and that's great. We've been going to a lot, or having a lot of deaths. We've been going to a lot of funerals, and it sucks. People, it's just, some of them are expected, some of them are unexpected, and either way, it's never good. But, so we've been catching up with a lot of people, I guess is my point. And that's kind of fun, for the most part, being able to see people you haven't seen in a while. We made a new hire this last week, and his name is Andy Scott, and he's from the great state of Kentucky. And Andy is, I just feel like we've got our field worked out now. We've got some really good people here that we've hired recently, people who've been here, and we're in the right direction with what we need to do. For field supervisors, their top three positions or top three focuses are quality control, schedule management, job sites management, and then subcontractor and customer management out there in the field. And those are the three. They do a million other things, but they've got to be me out in the field. And so it's kind of cool to see this thing heading in the right direction. So I'm excited about getting Andy on board. The other thing we've been doing here a lot is for Wheel and Builders anyway, we've got 4 jobs to start. Of course, the government's been holding us up on half of these, and that sucks, but it is what it is. They don't care. But we're starting these 4 jobs. 2 of them are for the Dzards. We're going to finish their basement in their house that we built for them 2 years ago. And we're also going to build a mother-in-law suite and I don't know why we call it a mother-in-law suite, in-law suite. Her parents are going to be living in the house that we build, that we're going to attach to their house. So that's going to be a challenging project, but it's going to be really, really cool. And we're glad to finally get that thing started. And we also signed a contract, and these are all, believe it or not, these are all out in Goshen. And I remember in 2005, when I was president of the Home Builders Association here locally, we were talking to Goshen about, hey, growth is going to come your way at some point, and you guys need to look at your Ohio Revised Code. You need to look at your zoning laws. You need to look at a number of different things because it's going to come, and you can't stick your head in the sand in a rural part of the world and say, it ain't going to come out here. We're going to stop it. Why don't you plan for it? And that will make things a lot easier for you. So we went out and met with him. We told him, so lo and behold, here we are 20 years later, and it's really starting to pick up and go crazy out there. But we've got a bunch of jobs in this one area, and it's been really good for us. So I'm excited to get those things started. One of the contracts we just signed for out there in Goshen is some folks that people are always like, how many houses did you sell this week? Well, I've been talking to these people for 6 years, I think, and we just been bouncing around different lots. We've been designing plans. We've been going back and forth working on pricing, and we finally ended up in the spot here to where we signed a contract last week. And I really like these people. When anytime we have a long-term relationship we always have a long-term relationship with our customers, but you get to know them better and you have a lot of deep conversations, and I'm just excited for them to see this contract come together. On the farm, we've been getting ready for the fair. The fair is the second week of July, and we've been the kids are out of school, so it's full time, it's full on, and trying to get these cattle ready. Whether it's, when we come down to the heat and you got to then they stop eating, and then you got to try and get them in. We're messing with their feed, and then we're trying to get them groomed, and we're washing every day. We're walking and practicing and getting these guys used to being in the show ring. So it's a lot of work, and I don't think that anybody understands how much work this is. Now, there's a lot of kids that can just show up to the fair, and maybe that's the second time they've seen their animal. But my kids I've made it a point. They're in it, and they're in it all the way. And Cody's been working, and this kid's 13 years old, and he's just a worker, and I'm glad to see it. I'm trying to get a healthy balance between, I want him to work because it's hard physical labor. It's going to put him in better shape to play football and to play baseball than the majority of the kids that are thinking they're lifting weights or whatever they think they're doing. But it's also teaching him ethics, a good work ethic. But it's also, I want to make that balance where he's still a kid. Maybe sleep in late 1 or 2 days, or go to Kings Island, or go hang out with your buddies, or whatever you're doing. Make sure that I'm still putting that in there, and that's a tough balance for me anyway. Maybe it's not a tough balance for him, but kid worked 13 hours the other day baling hay for the neighbors, and then he come down here and we baled ours. Woke up at 6 o'clock the next morning, and we lofted 260 bales up in the loft, and then we pulled in another 8 round bales. And then he took off with my dad the rest of the day, and we had a trailer full of stuff that we had at the farm that they were trying to get rid of over at Habitat, restore for Habitat. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now, the other side of it, with Raina and Shannon, they were in kids camp all week with Four Corners Church, which was our church. Kids camp, if you guys ever grew up around Vacation Bible School or something like that's what this is, but it's on steroids. They had 360 kids there this week. So Shannon is in charge of what they call snacks, which is, you're like, okay, well, you're going to hand out bags of potato chips. No. Shannon has had this food in our house for the last couple months. She is the one who takes it all and divvies it up and separates it. They make a different snack for every night. And don't forget, she's doing this for 400 and something, because the staff, the volunteers, need to have snacks too. But it's also all the kids. And it's a pretty tough job. So she's been in that. Now Raina also volunteered, because Raina is too old to go to kids camp. So Raina goes back and volunteers, and she's been volunteering all week. Everybody's been busting their butt. I feel like the lazy one for the, I was going to say for the first time, but I feel like the lazy one in our family right now. I'm just going to work and, farming and doing my normal thing. And these guys are just killing it. So I'm grateful for them. And anyway, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling on, but these are my notes that I wanted to talk to everybody about. But hey, so let's roll into it. Let's get into Johnny's interview. And we do clarify it. The first sentence of the interview is that I am the only person left in the world that calls him Johnny. Johnny is my mom's brother, So my Uncle Jim, Johnny, is his son, and that's how we're related. And he also has a sister named Jenny. And they were just, like I said, we spent a lot of time, since I spent a lot of time when I was a kid at my grandparents' house. All of these guys did too, and that's how we became so close. Plus, we had a lot of the same interest, and we're close. We're all close to the same age. But this dude is just it's a good interview, and it's just a cool way to hear his story. And I hope everybody enjoys it, and I hope that we put some clarity to why we do this. And anybody that thinks these episodes are too long, I don't care. I love it, and I love to hear everybody else's story. So, and without further ado, let's bring in my cousin, John Lohr. Well, all right, everybody. Like I said, today our guest is the much anticipated, my cousin, Johnny Lohr. Am I the only guy that still calls you Johnny?
You're the only one.
Really?
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, you and your mom are the only two people that call me Johnny.
Scott Lucky, I call Scotty Lucky, and he's like, "You're the only one that does that." And I'm like, "Well, thanks."
Yeah,
it doesn't stop me. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy, and man, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yes.
And we're glad to have you here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I apologize for not getting here sooner.
No apology needed. I should also mention that today we also have my brother Mike in here again, conducting this interview with Johnny. You want to say something? Say something into the camera.
I enjoyed it last time, and I'm looking forward to this time.
And I should mention also that Cody skipped school today because he felt like there was nothing going to happen. Last day of school. And so he's sitting in here with us. So if he might chime in and have a couple questions for Johnny as well. So
he couldn't miss it. That's why he's here.
Yeah, he couldn't miss it. He wanted to be here. He wanted to apologize to you for denting your truck that time with a rock. That was he still owes you $5,000. So hey, thanks again for being here. So John is a builder. He's a commercial builder. He has his own company called Gordian Construction, and we're going to get into that. But why don't we talk about you? Like, where'd you grow up at? What's your story? How'd you get here?
So I was born and raised in Cincinnati. I grew up in a part of town that we always called it Groesbeck, but it's part of Coleraine Township, just west of North College Hill. Grew up on a street called Clovercrest that was off of Pippin and dead end, and in a Clovernook Country Club. So that's where I lived there my whole life. I went to St. Margaret Mary Grade School in North College Hill, and eventually went to Roger Bacon High School. And after I graduated from there in '89, I went on to the University of Cincinnati.
Man, I forgot that golf course was at the end of the street, and I never knew that it was Clovernook.
Yep.
That I learned something. I can't believe I'm this old.
I lived there for 24 years of my life. Never played one round of golf there.
Still stole a lot of golf balls, though. We went out there and still got shot with rock salt.
Yeah, lots of good stories about that. We would sled ride up there in the wintertime, but in the summertime, we would wreak havoc on the golfers and steal their balls.
Am I dreaming, or did that dude across the street from you have? It seemed like they had trails in their backyard, and they had an old Grumman mail cart, didn't they? That just, I mean, it was like had a cherry bomb on it, and it was super loud. And yeah.
He was a mailman, and he collected the old mail carts, and I don't know how he got them, but he had two, and he would ride them around their backyard and trails they made. So. That's crazy. I forgot all about that.
And the other highlight of where you lived at was down. It was far enough away that we'd ride our bikes to the penny candy store. You remember that? I mean, we'd go in there and just drop a dime on it. Man, it was good stuff.
That was at the corner of Galbraith and Pippin. Yeah, and then there's Lake Nina was right behind us.
Oh, that's right.
And
world famous.
It's still up and operating.
Yeah,
I'd like to go back there again soon.
West Side, man. West Side. That's it. So, what are your degrees in from the University of Cincinnati?
So I have a associate's degree in architectural engineering and civil engineering, and I have a bachelor's of science in construction management.
Man, you're smart. I'm dumb. I forgot to tell you that we are drinking beer today during this show, and that's really important to mention. The only other time that's happened is when my good friend Matt Smith was here from Siteworks, and so those guys are drinking Coors Light. I'm drinking Bud Light, of course, and Cody is not drinking. He's drinking water. He's not drinking anything, but that's important for everybody to know. Where did you and your wife, Kira, where did you guys meet at? Because you guys have known each other for a long time.
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story, but I met her at my very first full-time job right out out of college. I was working at Paul Hemmer Companies, and I started there in '94. I don't remember exactly what year. It was probably like 98 or 99. Kira was working as an administrative assistant there, and it happened to be Valentine's Day. And
Stop it.
Here we go.
Someone I was dating at the time sent me a gift to the office, and Kira brought it to me. And that's how I met her.
Man.
Yes, receiving a gift from someone else. So anyway,
that's not a funny story. That's mean. What if the girl's listening right now?
Yeah,
Works out.
I have to edit this part out, but no. So we met there at Hemmer, and she was working there while she was going to the Northern Kentucky University.
Okay,
and it was only maybe for a year or so, and she took another job in the same building. But that's where we met, and I don't know. I got married in 2002, so
you're way deep now.
23 years in, and probably another 4 or 5 years before we got married.
You guys have 2 kids. What are your kids? What are they all about?
Yeah, so we have 2 kids. My oldest is Aiden. He'll be 20 next Friday. Wow, I can't believe that,
man. He's big time baseball.
Yeah, so right now he's a sophomore, or he just finished a sophomore year at Center College down in Danville, Kentucky. He plays baseball down there, and he's studying business. It's kind of like a double major with finance and econ. So he'll be starting his junior year come August. And outside of baseball, he's currently working with me this summer. We call it an internship, but he's just doing odd jobs, and he likes to golf and fish and camp. And then my youngest is Avery. She's 16, but she's going to be 17 here in July. She just finished her junior year at Conner High School. We live down in Hebron, Kentucky. So she'll be a senior next year. She's on the varsity cheer team. She does competition cheer and sideline cheer. And right now we're focusing on trying to decide where she wants to go to school. She's intending to go to college. If she could pick her dream school, she'd go to the University of Florida.
Oh.
But I told her we need to keep our our options open and look around. She's
closer to home.
She'd like to go south and be at a school that has a big football team. I don't think she has any desires to cheer in college anymore, but yeah, so she'd like to go south, but we're going to spend the summer kind of exploring that.
That's amazing. Those kids have no idea that they got the world by the ass right now, that they could make any decisions that they want that are going to, I mean, with guidance, but I mean, they're not tied down. They don't have things that are going to hold them back, that they can make decisions and just go wherever, do whatever.
Yeah. And
start a career, start a life.
Yeah, she's great. She's very creative and artistic, and she's been all across the board as far as what she wants to do, as far as one time she thought she was going to join the Army and be a tank mechanic.
Oh.
And then she said she wanted to be an auto mechanic. And then we were going to open a bakery together. Then there's cosmetology she's interested in. So I don't know where she'll end up, but she'll be successful, whatever she picks.
But she doesn't want to be part of the cartel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya told me we were watching all those shows on TV, and she goes, "Look at all the money those people have. I want to be part of the cartel."
Well, we all do. It's not worth the price you pay.
No.
Yep.
So, something that I always look at you and think I think that family means a lot to you. You guys, the 4 of you guys, are really close. You and Kira have done such an awesome job raising your kids. Your sister Jenny and your mom, and what does family mean to you? I mean, where does that lay with you?
Yeah, so our families, I would say we're not a traditional family. It's a small group. My dad's passed. My mom lives in Florida. My sister currently lives in South Carolina with my brother-in-law, Bill. And they've actually been out of town since probably early 2000s or late 90s. And my mom moved to Florida almost 20 years ago now. So we've never really, we've been separated for a long time. And it's worked out fine. Maybe that's really helped us to stay together. But so we're not as closely knit as, say, you guys. We don't get to see them every weekend. We talk a lot, but we're just not traditional, whereas we're not as close to each other physically as you would normally be.
Yeah.
But we've figured that out, and we're still close, and it means a lot. We miss our dad, but it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're going to get into him in a minute because he's got a lifelong, just a whole list of stories we're going to tell. But what's your greatest memory growing up? I mean, I just look back and I can think of a bunch of memories, but you've got to have, what's your greatest memory?
Well, I don't have one specific that's just my all-time favorite. I have a list of them, but if I go back, earlier to before we were driving and when we were young, I always remember hanging out with you guys riding dirt bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the greatest things I enjoyed in the summer times, was riding bikes with you guys. I remember going on trips to Canada with my dad. That was a big highlight for me. We would go once a year, and I think I made it to 20 consecutive. I've been there at least 23 times, but I think there might have been 20 consecutive trips I made there with him.
Man.
So that was always pretty cool. And then I remember a lot of family picnics on the Lohr side, and going to the dirt track races with Grandpa Lohr and watching you guys with your family car. Those are my biggest highlights when I was little. And then after we started driving, I'd say, my fondest memory is being in college and figuring out on my own what it's like to live on your own in a house with 5 guys for 3 years. And that was, created a lot of memories I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot.
That's good or bad. Whatever you were learning.
Yep.
And I always tell people, I think I learned 80% of what I learned was being on my own up there and having to figure out how to do it on your own and get through school. And you learn things in school, but man, I was, something I was telling, we were up at Meekum auction there a couple weeks ago, and I need to show you that now that I remind me of that. But we saw a truck up there that was just like Grandpa's black one.
Oh yeah,
and it was a 1500 Silverado. And I was just telling Shannon and the kids last night, I said both Grandpa and Uncle Jim had pickup trucks that had carpet in the bed. They kept them real clean, and when you go to Canada or you go fishing or go to Brookville or something like that, it was never a problem to sit in the bed of the truck because it was really cool.
Yeah.
Your wagon, don't you remember that wagon that you had? You painted it all up.
Yeah, Mike and I
put the carpet in there.
We had a phase where
racing wagons.
Yeah, we souped up our wagons and had races down the hill at your brown farmhouse.
Yep.
Yeah, that was cool.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah.
You were a really good baseball player too, and you played for the Storm Club. Remember that?
Yeah. I didn't actually play for the Storm Club, but I was at several of them their summer camps.
Yeah.
But I played through high school.
Yeah.
And I guess back in the day I thought I was good, but now that I know so much more following Aiden around, I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was. Yeah. Mike and I had a trip to Canada together too. That
was I think we were just before driving age, and Uncle Jim took us up there. And man, what a hoot that was!
What was where did Canada come from? I mean, why was he going to Canada?
Actually, Grandma and Grandpa, I think, were involved in that. But there was a guy in Mount Healthy. I'm going to forget his name. Shannon had a cabin up there on the lake, and somehow, I think through the hardware store, Dad and Grandpa met him, and that through conversation, they're like, "You guys need to try this place." I think Grandma and Grandpa took him there for the first time themselves.
Man, I thought it was the opposite way around.
I think they stayed in their cabin.
Yeah.
At the first few times, when before they had remodeled it and things like that before we had gotten there. But
yeah, there's pictures of your mom and my dad up there at that cabin.
I think that was like their family trip.
Yeah. Well, that was Sioux Narrows, Canada, right?
Right.
And that was Lake
of the Woods in Ontario.
Of the Woods. Yeah. That was pretty cool because we went up there. Grandma and Grandpa took us up there fishing. You're out in the middle of this huge lake on a boat. I got on a John boat, a canoe essentially, and I'm just surprised that we didn't die. But I'm glad that we didn't.
I didn't get invited on that trip.
I don't know why you didn't get invited on that trip.
That was really kind of different.
That was, huh? You must have been doing
Especially
something.
since you guys are the favorites on that stuff.
Yeah, you were.
I was surprised I was invited, to be honest with you.
So let's talk about your dad. We're talking about this cat. So I have so many different memories and one of the all time greatest storytellers. And whether they were true or not, they were good stories. What's your recollection? What was your deal with your dad? What's your reflection of your dad?
Well, he was a good storyteller. He was a car salesman, so that kind of fits the stereotype, right? He was a hard worker. I know that because he wasn't around a lot, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. But as a car salesman, I think he he had to be there at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and they stayed till close, which is usually 9 o'clock at night. And he worked Monday through Thursdays. He had Friday off. He worked every Saturday, and he had Sunday off. So, I was in bed before he got home, and I didn't see him in the morning because I was leaving for school before he got up. So, but one thing I reflect back on him is that I've never met anybody that told me they didn't like him.
Yeah.
And everyone always had something really good to say about him. And I always admired that. So I keep that in mind, and to kind of form some of my personality where, I'm always concerned about what everybody thinks about me. I know it's probably not a great trait to have, but I got that from him because I just, you don't want to burn any bridges. I'd rather be on people's good side than bad. And I think he did a lot of that. Other than that, I remember, my evenings with him, I'd toss ball, and we'd spend time down at his lot in Ross trying to cut firewood and get ready for him to build his house down there.
Yeah.
So he's a good guy.
Incredible. He sold Porsche and Audis for forever, and I always thought that was like the greatest story to tell because back in the day, Porsche and Audi were like the coolest cars ever.
Yeah,
so when he was selling those, it's always like, yeah, I got an uncle. But he was 7 foot tall, and that's where you get your height from. He's Grandpa's son. I look at this because I go from Grandpa to your dad to Mike and realize how full of shit our whole family is, and I'm just wondering where it starts at.
Well, I think
You're just like it, Cody.
I think that's why my dad and Mike got along so well. They were both really good bullshitters.
He did the same thing with me, though. I mean, I just remember out there, and I don't know why, he was out there. I throw a ball with him forever in the backyard, but we were always doing that. He always has these stories going around, like with. Oh, I can't remember the people's name with Haskins and all those guys. He was a gearhead when he was in high school, and school, and even after that. And so I think that's where a lot of it. So, what about? I mean, you said this before. What a big influence Grandpa was on your life. How many people he was an influence on in their lives, and especially ours too. What did that mean to you to have somebody like that in your life?
Well, he played a big role in for all of us growing up. For me, my parents were divorced or got divorced when I was in the 6th grade, and I was 11 or 12 years old. So I spent a lot of summers at Grandma and Grandpa's house because my mom was working a second job, or my dad was working, and they were my babysitters for quite a while. And if I wasn't with them, I was usually with you guys down with your mom and dad down in Ross. So, I learned a lot from them. He always took us in his wood shop and let us mess around with his woodworking tools. I learned a lot about doing things with my hands with him. They taught me about riding tractors, cutting grass, growing a garden, just things that,
Cussing.
Cussing. A lot of he was, to me, really, in a lot of ways, he was a father figure for me because I was doing things with him that I couldn't do with my dad. So they were a huge influence on me.
I just seemed, you said that about your dad, that you never had anybody say anything bad about him. Everybody always come up and talk about what a great guy. Grandpa's the same way.
Yep.
And there was more. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. And I think it was the same way for the Annises when Uncle Ronnie died, and he's like over there with all those kids, taking all those girls to father-daughter dances, and you and I basically we grew up there. My mom hates me to say that, but I mean we lived there.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, after all of that, you and I are the only ones that ended up with no nickname, which is bullshit. But everybody else got a nickname, which doesn't make sense.
Well, I like your theory about why, and that's because we were the only two that they liked, and that they could remember our name.
Everybody else. But it wasn't like they were out there going, this is the way you garden and this is the way you do this. It was like you wanted to be there and you wanted to be there learning from them and everything that they were doing. They were just living this really cool life and they were just super, super nice people. I mean, if they weren't at your ball game, they were at one of our ball games, or they were at Mike's track meet, or they were doing something.
Yeah.
They were always there. And one of my high school basketball coaches, I always used to say, oh, coach, hey, you got to put me in. My grandparents are going to be here tonight. and finally one time he saw him and he goes, is this your grandparents? I was like, yeah. And he goes, they're at every game. Why are you telling me this crap?
Yeah, I remember there's a couple times in the summer I'd go and he'd take me on jobs that him and Pete Riemann would be doing, carpentry jobs and side jobs, and I would work with them. That was cool. We'd sit ride in the back of the silver van in a lawn chair with no seatbelt.
That's right.
Right between
all the tools rattling around.
Yeah. We would drive that down to Florence Speedway too.
Yeah,
they'd take and they'd screw those lawn chairs down to the floor in the back of it, and then everybody would sit in there like it was a bus until one of them screws shimmied loose, and then somebody bit it one time, I think. And
Walt would go to the races, but he'd always show up in his Volkswagen, so he didn't have to drive. Grandpa didn't have to drive.
I forgot about that too.
So on the other side of your family, the Rattermans, you guys are when somebody says, yeah, our family's Catholic, I don't think they've ever had. You had two aunts that were nuns, right?
Still do.
And I mean, yeah, you still do, but I mean that's got to be, I just learning about Christianity, learning about all these different things in the years. That always struck me to think, what's it like to live in a family that has two nuns? I mean, maybe I think it's a bigger deal than other people are like, it's not that big of a deal. Why are you talking about it? But that had to be a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I mean, my mom's one of four, and she was the second youngest. But her two older sisters that are my Aunt Joan, and we call the other one Aunt Cork. Her name's Ray Marie, but they're both sisters they're part of the Sisters of the Precious Blood up in Dayton. And they left the house when they were 13 years old, moved into, went to the convent and became sisters and nuns. And now they both live up in Dayton in the mother house. They're like, I guess they're considered retired.
How old are they, do you think?
I think my Aunt Joan, who's the oldest, is approaching 90, if not 90.
Okay.
And Aunt Cork's about 80, 88. But they're both still doing well. Aunt Cork watches every one of Aiden's baseball games online. She knows every player, every stat, every game. She's a huge baseball fan. So they're doing well. I think the most interesting part is that they left the house so young. And could you imagine doing that today?
Didn't know that.
No.
Having your 13-year-old leave and then they never come back. But that's
crazy.
It's been great. That was my Aunt Joan was a principal at St. Margaret Mary when I was there. So that was I don't know if that was good or bad, but she was watching over me every day. So I did spend a lot of time with them through school just because they worked there. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's neat. So, I think that we were talking a little bit about this before, like when your mom and dad split up, and I think it affected us all because it was probably like we were all kind of going, you guys were deep into it, obviously, and it affected us all. But it always, I look at you and Jenny, and I mean, you guys, you're so smart. You guys turned out so awesome. It's tough to watch somebody go through that, but I mean, how do you feel like? I mean, just how did you escape? I mean, how did you make it through? I mean, what kept you going?
Yeah, that was pretty tough. I mean, here you are, 11 years old. You come home. Your dad comes home from work one night and sits you down and says, "Hey, I'm leaving." And within probably 45 minutes, he was loaded up in the car and gone. So it was pretty traumatic. And I remember, Jenny and I being really upset and really mad at my dad just because we didn't understand.
Yeah,
we didn't know really what was going on. But
I don't think it was as common then,
no,
what I mean, like it is today. But
yeah, it wasn't. And being, in the Catholic schools and being part of that Catholic family at the Rattermans, it was a pretty big deal. I remember, it was something that you felt embarrassed about because it just wasn't common. So it was rough. Then as you get older, you kind of realize it really is fairly common and probably not that big of a deal. But the way we got through it, to answer your question, is it's just our family was our support system, and your mom and dad, you guys, my aunts and uncles on the other side, they were always there for us. They helped my mom out whenever we needed someone to watch us or take us somewhere. Everybody chipped in. Our grandparents obviously were a big part of that. So it was really just our support circle that helped us.
Kind of the neat part about that, though, too, was that Grandma and Grandpa never shied away from your mom. I mean, they were even closer with her after that, I think, than they were beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
They did a lot of things together.
I think they were mad at Uncle Jim too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, but they always kept a good relationship with Aunt Donna, and I always thought that was kind of neat and something. They were building things in the basement, and they do craft shows and keep her busy, and they all did a lot of fun stuff together still.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they they were a big part of helping her through it too, and I do think that they probably were more into her than my dad after that. They kind of...
Well, he was kind of hard to be into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he didn't really come around the family a lot. He didn't really come to functions until probably later on in life.
After he retired.
Yeah, after he retired. I mean, then he started coming to different parties, and I think he kind of...
There was a part of that, too, that when he was married to that other lady, and she was a pain in the ass, and I think that nobody gelled with her, and that held him back for a long time. And then when that was over, then all of a sudden it's like, where has this dude been, man? I mean, he came around and we were hanging out, and I
think he kind of realized what he was missing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And because we had a lot of fun together, we had a lot go to the Daytona 500 parties, and we'd have parties at the house, and hell, Christmas Eve, I think he made a wrong turn leaving out of there one night, and he was downtown. He was supposed to be at Ross. We were drinking that whiskey that Dad had out of that Irish Setter bottle.
Yeah, he told me about that. He said he had to stop behind some retail center to take a leak, and he didn't know where
I had to stop behind a retail center too, but it wasn't to take a leak. He called me the next day. God damn, he said, I don't know where I was. He said.
When he did his funeral, I compared him to that movie Big Fish. And if you've ever seen that movie, it's this guy who tells these just huge far-fetched stories, and they're in the circus, and they're always like, oh, they tell this story, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, especially his son doesn't believe a word he says. He's like, God, I'm so tired of listening to these stupid stories. And then they go to the funeral, and all these people show up that had been in their lives and been around there and that didn't happen at his funeral, but I expected it to happen. I expected a couple of people to show up, but that was what a great storyteller he was. But your mom is, I'm pretty sure that's the only reason why Mike and Aaron and I graduated high school was because of her. She was our tutor and our mentor through education and stuff, because she was so smart. But I mean, she had to have a little bit of a wild side to marry your dad, to go out with your dad. I mean, she's this, this Catholic lady over here that's super smart, and she marries this, like, basically, like, what they call them, suits and the greasers. I mean, he's working on cars, and that's a great point. I've never seen my mom get sideways ever, or get out of hand. And
I've seen her get mean a couple times.
She can get mean. Yeah,
she was strict at times. You know what I mean? When we were young.
Yeah. So I've been trying to think about how they actually got together. And we should probably call your mom, and she could answer the question.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was they were just mutual friends. And I don't know if it was my Uncle Terry, because my dad was into the drag racing and race cars, and so was Terry and Roger.
Yeah.
And I think it may have been something to do with that group, how my mom got introduced to my dad.
There you go.
Yeah. But we need to clarify that with your mom.
I wonder how many innocent, smart women got taken down by the racetrack.
He's a race car driver.
So your mom, I was going to tell this story because I had it in my notes here about this dude that your mom was dating one time, and I can't remember. Grandpa always had a nickname for all of them. For one, the name was Curly, I think they called him, or maybe that was his real name. And so I would come home from school and from college, and we were sitting there, and he says that I was complaining about one of my professors, and I was struggling, and I was explaining this situation to this guy, and the guy says, let me ask you something. He says, what's this guy wear? And he said, I bet he wears the same thing every day. And he said, I'll bet it's a blue button-up shirt and khaki pants. And I said, yeah. how did you know that? And he goes through like 3 or 4 other things. And he said, this guy is this and this and this. He goes, I'll tell you what, you go back to school, you wear the same exact thing he does every day, and you guys will be best friends. So I go to JCPenney's and I get me like a blue shirt and some khakis, and I wear it like every single time I got to go to physics class. And next thing you know, I'm sitting down in his office. He hates everybody's guts, and I'm sitting down in his office, and we're talking about what we're going to do this weekend. And at the end of the school year, we had this project with like 4 other people that had to do this project, and one of the dudes copied everything from his roommate and accidentally left both reports in this folder and turned it in. Well, that's plagiarism, and you can get kicked out of school for it. So the teacher gets it, and he's gonna kill everybody. And he calls me into his office and he goes, listen, this is a problem, but I know it wasn't you. I'm like, you're right. It wasn't me. I don't know what happened, man. Let's talk about construction. Let's get out of this family bullshit. Let's talk about construction. So our family has produced a fair amount of construction professionals. You know, I mean, you think about cousin Tim, David Klink, cousin Billy. You talk about cousin Tom, Billy Jr. and cousin Tom, Uncle George, cousin George. You know, me and Mike, your dad. I think you threw a couple other ones in here too. There's so many people that were in the construction business in our family, and I don't know where it started from, but it seems like when people say, it's in my blood, well, it's in your blood, and this is how it goes. So what influence did this family, or what influence, why did you become a builder? Was it influenced from what you've seen, or did you just have this desire? Where'd it come from?
No, it was 100% influenced by growing up with you guys and being around Grandpa.
Yeah.
I've kind of reflected back on that, and really, to be honest with you, it's probably primarily your dad. When I was spending my summers with you guys down in Ross, and I used to work with Mike, a couple weeks at a time in the summer, working for your dad. I'd get around the houses. I was doing cleanup, pushing a broom. Then we worked at Homerama several years, getting it set up and then tearing it down. And I just loved being around that new house feel, the smell. I loved the designs I was seeing. And, I always dreamed about, I want to have a house like this someday. And I think that's where it all started.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned before, spending time with Grandpa, I mean, when he built his second house on Struble Road, I spent that whole summer with him working on that. I got, I learned a lot seeing that happen. And I liked remembering that we started with nothing, and at the end of the summer there was a house sitting there.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool. So when I got through high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I thought in the back of my brain that I wanted to be an architect because I wanted to draw all these cool houses that you guys were building in your business. So I went to the University of Cincinnati. Well, I applied to like 5 different schools in their architectural programs. And I really wanted to go to UC because a good group of my friends were going there. But the DAAP program, the DAP program at UC is very hard to get into. I didn't get accepted. So I remember going down to school with my mom, and we met with a counselor, and she suggested that I go to the College of Applied Science and start in the architectural engineering program and then reapply the next year. Well, so that's what I did. And when I got to the College of Applied Science, that's where Tim Traxel was really involved in there, and he was kind of a mentor to me. And I think through my first couple rounds of co-ops, I realized that it wasn't the architecture that I wanted to do. I didn't like sitting behind a drawing board, and I realized I really wasn't as creative as I thought I was. So then I had a co-op quarter that I spent with Joe Schwartz when he was at J2 Homes.
Yeah.
And I love those guys, and it was a tremendous experience. But after that co-op quarter, I really realized that I was drawing houses for him. I wasn't in the kind of construction side. So that was the last quarter that I wanted to do the architectural. I went back and switched majors to construction. And I realized it was the building part that I liked more. And my next co-op quarter is when I got my first co-op at Paul Hemmer Construction.
Oh, good.
So that's how I got into the commercial side of things. But really, I think it was, looking back, it was spending time, with wheel and builders in the summer times. That I think that's how I got influenced to get into the business.
That's great. I would, I don't know what it is. Our family, especially when you were talking about some of those family reunions and stuff, and you get around all the Annises and all the Nagels and my dad and grandpa and those guys, they would somebody would just, it was always, it was tight. It was a group, and so
many characters.
Tim Traxel just called me the other day and said, "Hey, I got a piece of property that I know a guy that's wanting to sell it. Let's go up and look at it. I'll make the introduction and it's up in Wilmington." And I'm like, man, it's pretty cool,
Yeah.
But I think when Dad used to sit there and he'd start talking and they'd all sit around the table and they'd start listening. And I think it influenced a lot of people because Pat worked with him for a long time. And there's a handful of other guys, Ronnie Annis, he worked for the framing carpenter there for a long time. I mean, it always led to somebody else doing something. And I think that's pretty neat. So, J2, I mean, that had to have been a trip working with JoJo and those guys. I mean, that's a 5 o'clock every morning, man.
Yeah, the best part of the morning was from like 6:30 to 8:30, while JoJo was in there yelling at all the superintendents before they go out into the field. That was pretty entertaining.
So your company is Gordian Construction, and would I say this right? If you're a custom industrial contractor, is that the right way to describe it? Because you don't are you bidding off the Dodge and all that stuff, or are you getting invited to bid?
Yeah, we're considered a design build general contractor. We do not do any public work. Everything's in the private sector.
Yeah.
So we specialize in commercial and industrial type projects. Our real bread and butter is building bulk distribution centers and warehouses for national and global real estate investment trust type companies. And then outside of that, we do office construction, multi-story office buildings, retail centers. But primarily we're in the industrial and distribution market.
Are you doing like tenant finishes and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, besides doing the ground up building, then when there's tenant turnovers in these properties, we'll go in and either, renovate the existing space for a new tenant or totally tear it out and rebuild it for a new tenant, both in the office buildings and in these industrial buildings. How do you
get your work? I mean, where does it come from?
It's 100% referrals, relationships, and repeat business.
Yeah.
It's and the biggest part's relationships, and it takes a long time to develop those. I have a new client we're just starting to do work with this year that I've been chasing for 12 years. Finally got the first opportunity. Now you gotta perform and succeed because you get the next one. I probably have 6 major clients that make up 85-90% of our business that we do repeat work for.
That's awesome.
And you gotta perform and keep them happy because that's
what you got.
Yeah, that's the bloodline of the company.
How did you come up with the name for your company?
I knew you guys were going to ask me that. So
I was always curious about
I need my old partner Doug here, who's retired, to tell the story because he came up with it. And this is the truth. When we started the company, we were leaving Paul Hemmer Construction, so we wanted to be on the north side of the river, not in northern Kentucky. There was 2 of us. We were partners. We didn't want to use our last names because Doug was quite a bit older than me, and we knew he would be, leaving before I did. So we just didn't want to use our last names in the company name. So he claims he was sitting on the couch one day, got out a dictionary, opened it up, dropped his finger, and fell on the word Gordian. And he's like, and he knew what that was. I didn't. He picked up the phone one day and called me and says, "Hey, this is right before we were getting everything set up." He goes, "How do you think about the name Gordian for our company?" I'm like, "Sounds great. What's it mean?" And he said, "Well," he goes, "don't you know the story of Alexander the Great and all that and the Gordian knot? And no one could figure out how to solve undoing the knot. Well, Alexander the Great comes up with his sword and strikes it with one massive blow and cuts the knot in half. And so it's like the metaphor for solving difficult problems with one bold stroke." I'm like, "Sounds great. Let's do it."
There you go.
So that's how we got the name.
I think I've learned more in the last 30 minutes than I have all day.
So when we made up these little business cards that tell that story on it. So when we would go meet new people everyone would ask us the same questions. So we could just hand them the card and say, here you go. But Doug was real good at telling the story, so I didn't do it the justice, but that's where the name
that's a good story, man. That's at what year did you guys start your company?
So it was 2010. So this year is our 15th anniversary.
Wow.
You believe that?
And awesome. Man, that is awesome. That's man, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it was just yesterday.
2010.
Yeah. And that's, you know, my friend Matt Smith was on here from SiteWorks, and you've done some stuff with those guys, but he started his company right about the same time. And we're all coming out of the recession. I mean, we were just dying. And I think that was probably one of the results. Some of it, when you were at Hemmer and everybody was struggling, and you guys all were all looking for something to do. And it's a great time to start a business.
Yeah, Hemmer was going through a tough time, and there was some massive staff reductions. And, my partner at the time, Doug, called me and said, hey, he goes, I know it sounds like a weird time to do this, but we've talked about forming a business in the past. How about now? And I was still in Chicago, and I was like, well, let me think about it. And I ended up coming back, and we decided to pull the trigger. And we rolled the dice. It was, 2010. There wasn't anything going on, and I remember being at a couple of meetings. Actually, one was with some of the Nair guys, and I think it might have been Jim Nair. And he's like, I was telling him about our business starting up. He goes, "What are you guys crazy?" He's like, "There's no work anywhere, and you guys are starting a new business." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe we are crazy." But looking back, it was a big gamble. But it was probably the perfect time for us to try, because there wasn't much going on. So it gave us time to, get our systems in place and figure out where we were going to have our office and how we were going to do work. And then I got a quick story for you about how we got our first job. We were a month into setting up things, and I did have a non-solicitation agreement where I couldn't contact past clients, so we honored that to the T. Kira wanted to get family pictures taken because we had just moved back from Chicago. The kids were little. So she hired a photographer. We went out to Sharon Woods to get some pictures taken. And while the kids were running around, I'm standing there talking to this photographer's husband, and we're just shooting the shit. And he asked me what I did. And I said, I'm in the construction business. And his eyes just opened up. He's like, man, he goes, I work for a developer, and I'm a property manager, and I got some projects I need somebody to take care of for me. He goes, you interested? And I said, yeah. So that night I got home, he sent me an email with some projects to look at. Next day I went out, priced them, and within 3 days we had our first job.
No kidding.
Yeah. Wow. So that's how we started our first job.
That's unbelievable.
And it just grew from there. The company was called DCT Industrial at the time, and now they've been purchased by Prologis. But that's what got us going.
That's a cool story.
Pure luck,
man.
Yep.
That's a good story. So you talk about being in Chicago, and I remember talking, because I was on the Spirit of Construction board with Mike Hemmer, and I remember him talking about you going up there, and they had to make a union, didn't you? Because I thought that he said that he had to make a union because he was worried about you getting killed, but sending you up there.
No, we didn't go union, and that's. Talk about a tough place to go to try to start business from nothing. That was a tough one. So, I mean, it's primarily a union area, but there are non-union contractors up there. And when you're not doing public work and you're in the private sector like we were, it really wasn't an issue. Yeah. We didn't get harassed too much. And honestly, we weren't doing a ton of business up there where we weren't really on the map where people were tracking us down.
So they decided that they didn't already have an office up there, did they?
No.
And they decided they're going to start, the Hemmer's going to start a division in Chicago, and they choose you to go up there and run it, right?
They had a real estate guy that was from the area, and he had an interest in going to that market to do real estate development projects. So he went up there and did that. And once he started getting some projects in the pipeline where they needed construction support, then they asked me to go up and start the construction division. So we went up there. I think I was there from 2003 to 2009, so 6 or 7 years. And then in 08, 09, that's when everything started crashing. So we closed the office down and came back.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
What was that conversation like with Kira when they wanted you to transfer up there? And I mean, you guys were still young and...
Yeah.
Was she like, yeah, let's go? Or she's like, this sucks?
No, she was 100% on board. She's like, let's go. The biggest issue we had is we had just signed a contract to build a house with Dries down in Hebron. I was actually excited to go because what I was doing at the time at Hemmer, I was kind of losing my passion for it. So it was like a new challenge for me, and it was a big stepping stone for me for my career as far as, promotion. So we went home, talked about it, and she was on board, and we were excited about it. It was, something, it was going to be a good challenge, and move into a new place. We were optimistic about it, and it was a great experience. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, so we were up there in June a couple of years ago, and that's the first time I've ever been up there, like consciously understanding what's going on in Chicago. And it's really a neat town. I mean, especially if you go to Wrigley and get to see all that. I mean, that's pretty cool. I can't imagine what the winters were like up there, but it had to have been a cool experience just to live somewhere else.
Yeah, it was neat. The winters about the same as here. They're a little bit colder. They just come 3 weeks earlier and stay three weeks longer.
Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge that you have in your business? If you can name one.
Probably finding and securing the next job. I mean, that's my constant battle every day is, okay, you're happy for about 4 hours when you land a job. Then I'm on to, okay, where are we going to find the next one? Because it takes, in our business, it could take a year, from the time someone starts talking about something to before you actually sign it. So, I got guys, we're very busy right now. We got guys just now getting stuff coming out of the ground. The weather's been terrible. And I'm worried about, okay, what are we going to do next May? So that's my biggest challenge personally, is finding and securing that next job. Outside of that, it's the market volatility right now. COVID was terrible. Material shortages, and the prices went way up. Interest rates went way up. Now we got this. Everyone's using the tariffs as an excuse to throw price increases out there. So, we give out proposals for projects, and we give you a price, and we have to honor that for a certain amount of time. And that time period has become so small because our subcontractors are like, hey, I can't hold my price because my vendor or my supplier is not holding his price. So we have trying to explain that to our customers that's a challenge.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand. Some of them do. But knock on wood, it seems to be, there's still a lot of talk.
Say it.
A lot of talk in here.
Don't say it.
But it hasn't been too bad.
The two biggest people that don't understand that stuff is the customer. Probably has they understand it, but they have a hard time swallowing it. But as the government, they do not care about approvals. They don't care about processes. They don't care about you having to make a living. They don't understand all that up and down. And you get some guy that's sitting in the office down there and says, oh, well, you're showing a pond on this plot plan, but you ain't building no pond. You got to go back, and it holds you up for 3 or 4 weeks. And it's like, man, there was 6 tariffs that just passed through, and now we got 30% increases on this stuff. It just drives me crazy that people can't understand. We're all in the same. We all have the same goal. We're all in the same area. But we just do different jobs, and you got to move forward. And that sucks. It's a struggle. It's always something in the construction business. And I don't know if it's like that. And I try and talk to a lot of other people that are in different businesses to see. I'm always like, do you have ups and downs? I mean, like, you talk to a CPA, do you have an up and down year, or what do you do? And a lot of people in those jobs are consistent, but then if you own your own business, there's always a fluctuation, and it just eats you up. I always get people that ask me, like, did you have an aha moment when you're in business? And I always tell them, I said, I've never had an aha moment. I've had a bunch of oh shit moments, and where you had to stop, drop, and adjust. And so, I mean, what about you? Like, what was there any time that you can remember where you were like, this is what we're going to do? This is what we're going to do.
No.
All right. Let's move on. I'm
in the same boat as you. Because I had already spent 19 years kind of doing the same type of business that we're doing now. So I kind of knew what our direction was going to be, or at least what we wanted to do. But we've had several oh shit moments.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest one was back in 2021, 2022, when we were just going absolutely crazy. phone was ringing off the hook, and projects they couldn't start fast enough. And I remember driving home one day after someone called and asked us to do gave us another project, is how are we going to do this? I don't think we have enough people to do it. We don't have enough project managers, superintendents, and that was a no shit. Like, okay, I need to learn how to say no sometimes.
Yeah.
So we made it through. It was very hard, and we all said we're not doing that again.
Right.
So that was a no shit moment that kind of knocked us back in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, like we say, there's always something. When we were in the recession, there was a ton of those moments, because you get into a point in life where you're like, man, I've got this experience. I've learned this. And you don't realize that every single day that you're learning something new, you're getting punched with something else. You get something else thrown at you, and you just got to be able to adjust and understand that you weren't in this for the short term. You're in it for the long term, so you've got to be able to adjust and fly. I've got a good friend of mine and mentor. His name's Jay Myers. I think you know Jay from Dugan and Myers. I introduced you to him at one of those events one time, and just a great philosopher, storyteller, good guy. And you learn, for those old guys, you don't bitch around them because they've lived through it all, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. And I was on the phone bitching one day, and he goes, because I live in a neighborhood with CPAs and doctors and lawyers. And he said, every single one of those people got to get up and go run their own business every day too. That's the nicest way somebody's ever told me to shut up in my entire life. But it's right. When you own your own business, it's not the task at hand. It's the continual day-to-day operations, so it's
lifestyle, really.
Yeah. It's tough. But,
yeah. There's no 8 to 5.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy? I mean, I think we've touched about this a little bit, but what do you enjoy about your business, building commercial?
There's a couple things, but the main thing is I like meeting our clients and understanding what their needs are, and being able to take their concepts or their dreams and putting it in on paper for them, turning it into a budget, and ultimately, winning that business and then building it for them, and, being a good service provider for them. I've always liked that whole process. And then, with the sports background and the sports that we have in our family, we're competitive people. And then in our world, if a guy has a job out that he's not going to usually just get one price, he's going to 2 or 3, 4 or 5 GCs to get bids, and it's just a competition. And I like that competition. Like trying to win those deals. It's hard because some customers really value or put value up first, up in front of price.
Yeah.
And there's other guys that just take price and don't care about the value. And we're trying to sell value, not price. But I like that challenge. And then, ultimately, this, like we had mentioned before with the home building, is that it's just amazing to me to remember walking out, looking at a field and saying, okay, well, we're going to put a 500,000 square foot box here. And 9 months later, you drive out there and it's done. So you get the satisfaction of seeing it from nothing to completion. It's always been very satisfying to me.
Yeah. So what's the biggest building you've ever built? That reminds me.
I think the biggest one to date's like an 870,000 square foot distribution center is up in Dayton, and Crocs is currently the tenant in it.
Nice.
That's the biggest one we've done so far. Man.
So is there a reason you don't do public work? You just do private sector stuff, or is it a whole different animal?
Yeah, it's kind of a different animal. It's more.
That's low bid.
Yeah, it's low bid. It's harder to make good margins there. And then there's no limit on how many competitors can be bidding on that job. So it's just not our cup of tea.
I gotcha.
I remember we were in a recession. We were bidding on some public stuff that we knew we could do, and they were pretty cool projects. And I was talking to you one time, and you're like, And you got to know how to play that game. I mean, those guys will bid it at cost. And then if they get the job, then they go back and then they beat everybody down and say, we got this job. If you want to work, you got to drop your number just so they could make their margin. The margins are so tight on that stuff. And man, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Or they look for a mistake on the drawings. And then after they get the job, they'll go back and ask for a change order.
Yep.
And then that's where they start trying to make their money back. And that's not how we operate.
Yeah.
Right.
We're the same way. I mean, we want the passion, which brings me to my next point. Our question is like our customers are very emotional about the process. They're very passionate, which is what we want. We don't want people to come in and be like, shopping numbers and that's all they're going to do. We want them to come in and they're passionate about what they're going to do. They're passionate about having Wheeling Builders work with them and build this awesome house. Are your customers emotional, or is it just matter of fact? Is it going by the book, or how do you handle that portion of your business?
Yeah, there's both. We have clients that are, very emotional and into every detail, and always think that they could have done it better, or we're not doing it the right way. Those are the difficult clients. But then we also have some that are, they've done it so many times and we've done so many for them that there's a trust level there. And, we've got, the plans and specs are already identified, and we just go and they said, let me know how it's going every 2 weeks and call me when it's done.
Nice.
So there's both. And I think you probably have both in your world too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the world goes around with different personalities and people. And I mean, you could be building the same house in the same neighborhood right next to each other, and this one's going great and this one's just not going so good at all. Yeah. You're running these ones that have these bad juju, but what keeps you doing this? I know you said you enjoy the challenge of the bid, but I mean, what's your passion and what drives you?
That's changed over time. Coming out of school, my drive was I needed to make money so I could pay for my car and buy a house. Right.
Yeah.
And then before I started Gordian, my drive was just to be the best at what I'm doing, and just to kind of go up that corporate ladder and try to get as high up as I could inside an organization. Now it's changed where, I have a family, and I have 15 employees, and they have families, and they have kids, and I consider them part of our family. So what drives me now is I want to keep the business going and be as successful as possible so that those people can be successful.
Yeah.
Because if they're successful and we're successful as a group.
Yeah. It's I'm with you. I mean, I think that when you're younger, you're looking at things going, I want to make money. And you're going to go to work and you're making money. And then eventually you have to realize you have to serve a purpose, and then you have to make these goals and do different things, to get there. So now it's more like running this business is a challenge. We never know how much money we're going to make a year. So you kind of take that out of the picture now. So if you don't make any money, then you're worried about it. And Shannon's got to go get a job. But it's the passion is certainly the biggest driver for me anyway. But where do you talk about the future of your business? And this happens a lot of times in commercial with a company like yours. You have sophisticated people that work with you. Is that the future of your business, or do you think Aiden's, or do you think Avery's going to take it? What have you guys had those discussions?
Oh yeah. We're deep into them right now. I don't know. Right now, Aiden and Avery haven't expressed any interest in getting involved in the business. It's available, but it's nothing that's being pushed on them. And I don't think either one of them really know right now. So that would play into what the future looks like. If they do want to get involved, then I think I would stay more heavily involved for a longer period of time, just from a personal level, to make sure they got their feet on the ground. But if they have no interest, we have a good plan in place already where I have two partners. My original partner retired 4 years ago now, and I brought in two minority partners to help, buy him out basically. And the plan would be just to pass that on to that next generation.
Yeah.
And time frame, I don't know. I'd like to see, when the kids are both out of college and what direction, what career path they decide to take, and then we'll figure that part out. But we do have a plan in place for succession.
Man, if Aiden's 20 years old and you guys haven't really had those conversations, we've just had this in our Builder 20 group, and we had a lady talking to us about succession and making sure you're valuing your business and what's going to happen to it. And I'm just thinking, I'm going to work until, because Michael retired before I do. And then what do we do after that? And I said, well, I'll just work until I don't want to work no more, and then we'll shut it down. And they're like, well, why don't you sell it? I'm like, these businesses aren't worth anything. And then you don't know if your kids want to take it over, right. and what kids want to do what. And so it's a kind of a waiting game.
Yep.
I'm with you. I mean, you just got to wait and see. And I don't want to be like, you're going to take this business over, because I want to encourage them to do whatever they want to do, because I feel like they're going to be successful at whatever they do, but I want to encourage them to go out and do whatever they want to do.
Right. That's exactly what Kira and I are doing, letting them make their own decision, and we let they know that the opportunity's there if they want to take advantage of it. And, our time frame's just a little bit closer to having that decision made than yours, but it's kind of the same process.
Yeah, I was hoping that you were going to let me take your company over someday, and I could. It's I mean, you work for your family. I mean, you work for your kids, you work for your family, and then you hope something happens. And I was do you have a lot of people that ask you, like your kids' friends or family friends or anybody like that wants to come work for you?
I never have, and but it's funny because now Kira and Aiden are both working for us right now. So no. I've never had that.
I haven't had much of it either, and maybe the kids aren't old enough to have their buddies, but I haven't had much of it either. And I think it's because they already know the answer.
Yeah, so. They're afraid of you, and they don't want to work with Mike.
A couple of kids, their friends and that kind of. I mean, they typically don't work out.
Yeah. It's a different pace.
It's a lot harder than they think.
Yeah.
It's a different pace. I don't know what people's level of expectation is, but so yeah, we talked about this. I mean, a little bit, but what's your retirement plan? I mean, how long do you work, and what do you want to do when you're done? I mean,
Well, I have started thinking about that. I'd like to own a little cabin on an island up in Lake of the Woods, and Kira would probably like to own a house on a lake or a beach somewhere. So maybe both, but I don't, time frame, just like we just said, I think I need to wait until the kids are both out of college.
Yeah.
And I know which way they're headed, but I'll probably be involved in the business longer than I think I'm going to be. And then I'm going to follow the kids around wherever they end up.
Yeah.
So
that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's always, everybody's like, oh, this is the good age. Oh, this is the good age. I'm like, I think all the ages are good because you get to see them grow and change. And then when you're in your position where they're going to start to spread out a little bit and go different places, man, I mean, that's got to be kind of fun. So the question's always beach or mountains. And that's funny that you and Kira and me and Shannon are about the same. As Shannon will be on a beach doing nothing but drinking all day, and I'm in a mountain, looking for something to do because I can't just sit there and it's always different. But it sounds like we're going to have a camper.
Yeah. Well, you had one of those.
I know. I sold it to you.
And I almost died pulling it. So go buy another one.
I forgot to tell you about that one thing.
You guys think too much. You just need a good, comfortable bar stool.
Right. What do you do for fun now?
Well, I mean, most recently it's been chasing around the college baseball team, watching ball games. I think since February 15th to the last weekend, I didn't spend one Saturday in my own bed. So that's over right now. So I do that. I really, really enjoy following that team and being involved with it. That's it's one of the things I do for fun. And then when that's over in the summertime, I golf. But Kira and I built a new house. I think we've been in there 2.5 years now, and when we are home, we really enjoy just spending time there and trying to get things finished that we haven't had finished, doing our yard work, trying to figure out getting the landscaping finished. And
you got some land too, so that's
it's just a couple acres, but it's all. It's not like partly wood; it's all yard. So we have a lot of stuff to take care of, and we're trying to get all that figured out. And that's what we're doing right now. I don't have any crazy hobbies like drag racing or anything like that, but following the kids around, staying at home, and playing a little golf every now and then.
I feel like as we round this out here, we didn't talk enough about about Jenny, and I think she's going to be upset.
Oh, she will.
What do we need to
She's
start talking
probably
about?
already listening.
She is. She's going to be mad, but she's
home tripping over the corks.
Yeah. I think my greatest memory of Jenny is that when she worked at Surf Cincinnati, and we would go up there and
I forgot about that.
Yeah, she drove a silver Firebird.
Yeah.
And that was she was always.
I remember being in the backyard at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and she would be driving us. We'd be riding in the wagon, and she'd be telling we'd be on this
like a zoo
safari, like a safari type thing. Yeah. She'd have this. She was the narrator. We'd be riding in the back.
I've got so many great memories of when we were kids, and until and we always think back on individual moments, but until now, you just don't realize how much time we all spent together, especially at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and that was. Man, it was so awesome. Just such an awesome experience to be able to have people like that in our lives.
So much different than the way our kids, or at least my kids, are growing up now.
Ours too.
When we were little, all the way up until we got into high school, we were best friends.
Yeah.
And then once you get to high school and you meet new people, we kind of started going down different paths, it's natural. But our kids never had that. My kids aren't as close with their cousins as we were, and I wish that would have been different.
Yeah. It's to each his own. Everything happens all the time, and so one other question I had for you that I was thinking about it as we were going through when you build those big. Well, I got two more questions for you. When you build those big buildings like that, are you building the building, or are you developing the site? Are you what all are you responsible for, from utilities to pavement to curbs, or are you 5 feet around the building and that's it?
No, it's everything. So we'll come in to greenfield, brownfield, we were responsible for all the mass site excavation, site utilities, roads, pavement, building all the way through.
Yeah.
Yep.
When they were building those buildings in front of our house up there, that one is just enormous. Yep. I can't begin to think how big it is, but
it's 1 million square feet.
Yeah, it's amazing, and but it's a tilt up, and those guys, they get all the way around to the end, and we were watching them set the last panel in there. And this building's probably 600 feet long or more, and they come down to that last panel and set it in place, and it slides right in there. Like they're dropping jelly on it just to get it to slide in there, and it's perfect. How in the hell does that happen? That's amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive. They have their own surveying crews, and they shoot every one of them panels in, and it really comes down to the erector. But yeah, it's pretty impressive because those joints, they're 1/2 to 3/4 inch joints between all those panels. Then you got the tolerance of the panels, and if you have a precast where it's shipped to the site and they're cast in a factory, then your tolerances on your panel widths are probably pretty tight. But then a lot of times we build them on site and lift them off the slab, and then you get a little different tolerances, so it gets a little harder to get those joints as perfect. But yeah, there's a real art to that.
There's got to be. And why would you choose? Because my buddy Mike does that. He works for Middleton, and they'll pour the slab, and then they'll form up the walls and tilt them up like that. Why would you do that as opposed to getting them shipped in? Is it more affordable?
It's less expensive.
Is it?
Yeah.
Then why don't everybody do that?
Because
time.
Because once you on a true tilt up project where you're casting your wall panels on the slab, you have to imagine that you're pouring your slab first. So that slab's getting abused through the whole project.
Oh, yeah.
It's like your workbench. All the forms for the wall panels are getting screwed into the slab.
Oh, yeah.
You got lawls and fork trucks and people working on it. So the slab gets marked up, and for these Class A industrial guys, when you walk in a warehouse, first thing you do is look at the floor.
Sure.
The next thing you do is you look at the ceiling. So they want those floors to be pristine. So not all developers are okay with the look of a tilt-up floor slab.
Yeah,
that's the biggest difference. So they're willing to pay a little bit more to get that perfect slab at the end.
That's amazing. It's amazing construction, those big buildings, because people are doing. That's the most common type of around us anyway.
Yeah.
Is the most common type of structure, and what it is these great big huge concrete form panels that they're shipping in, and the reason why they call it a tilt up is because there's a crane sitting there and it's laying on the truck or it's laying on the ground, and they grab one end of it and they tilt it up and put it in place, and that's the wall.
Yep.
And it's just forming these huge buildings, and then they come back and they separate them into all these different little businesses or great big businesses. The ones that are up there by us are those Amazon ones and Walmart, and just, man, that's crazy. But
what's their turnaround rate usually on those buildings? I mean, it just seems like so much of an area. I mean, do they rent quickly, or do they sit for a while? Or
I mean,
a little both.
A little bit of both, but for their project to be successful on their side, they usually want to have them leased up within the first 12 months. Mm-hmm. I think the ones that are up by Jeff's place, they're struggling a little bit. They're not. I don't think they have a tenant in them yet.
I thought that they were Amazon, and they were waiting for that width of. That's what we hear, is that they're waiting for the widening of 63 to get done, so that light gets done, and then Amazon's going to take over both of those buildings. Who knows? I don't know. I just.
There's a lot of them going up.
That's like the hotel business. I never understood it. I mean, but they're going like crazy. And we were talking to some investor people, and they're like, hey, that's cash money most of the time that people are doing. It's all investment money, right? I mean, not all of it, but most of it is a lot of investment money. But that's a different business. So, man, I feel like we're just kind of rambling on.
Yeah.
You know what I want to do is I want to probably leave the microphones on while we sit here and bullshit afterwards and drink a couple more beers, because that's when the good conversation comes out, and everybody will be like,
stuff we didn't talk about that Mike's involved in.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, thanks for having me. I like to come back.
Oh man, I'd love it. I think we should check in. I'm grateful for you to be here, and I know Mike and I are both grateful for you to be here. We've always been grateful for our relationship that we've had. I've always looked up to you and just been so proud of us and our relationship, but to watch you do the things you're doing. So you guys have always been part of our family, and man, I appreciate you. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day.
You're welcome. Proud of you guys too. And thanks for having me.
Keep on killing it, man. This is Johnny Lohr from Gordian Construction. Well, there you have it, folks. Like I said, that was my cousin Johnny Lohr from Gordian Construction. So you get to hear, I mean, of course, we hear his story and how he got to where he is. But you get to hear a lot of differences between commercial and residential, how he handles things. He and I have lunch we used to do it a lot more often, but we got busy, but about once a quarter. And we started talking about contracts. We started talking about pricing, talking about how different things happen in his business, different things happen in our business. And of course, we talk about family and family drama. And we cover all the bases. But that difference between commercial and residential is a lot. I feel like commercial is more sophisticated, and residential can be the wild, wild west a little bit. So I'm grateful for this dude. I'm so cool. I think it's so cool how our family has such a wide variety of people in the construction business. I mean, a lot of them are between the Lohrs, the Nagels, and the Whelans. I mean, man, there's so many, the Annises and the Traxels. And I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And the Clinks, I mean, all of them. We got so many people in the construction business. I don't know why we just didn't form our own team. But anyway, thanks again, Johnny, for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day. It was much anticipated, and it was well worth it. And I always enjoy spending time with you. And I hope everybody else enjoyed it. So I want to thank the audience for tuning in and listening. We are in the midst of June here. We've gone straight from rain to hot weather, and as we roll through the summer, we've got some really good episodes and some really cool people coming up here that I don't want to. I feel like I spoil it, but everybody's like, you got to tell them who it is. No, we're gonna wait. We got a really cool couple, really cool interviews coming up. I think they're all cool, but don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download on your favorite podcast service, and don't forget that our episodes drop on the second and fourth Tuesdays. I also forgot that I need to wish my mom and dad a happy anniversary. They've been married 56 years. Just made me think about that because their anniversary is always just before my dad's birthday. So wish them a happy anniversary. 56 years. Man. So if you want to be part of the conversation, reach out to me at WBDownload at wielandbuilders.com, WIELAND builders.com. And don't forget to check us out for our cool kick-ass houses that we build here at Wieland Builders at wielandbuilders.com, landbuilders.com. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you again, Johnny, for coming in. Thanks for Mike for being here. And, I forgot to mention that Cody was in here too. He didn't really speak a lot, but he was sitting in on this interview. Thank you guys for all being here and being part of the WB Download. And we'll catch you next time. I'm Jeff Whelan.